the the direction that's being given by the federal government and the state is that small businesses can't get evicted from their retail spot for right now. I believe it's the end of May, but that does not forgive or suspend the rent. And so, but my question with that is, if a commercial space has asked their bank for forbearance, where they just push it onto whatever loan they have, and those commercial spaces are still charging rent to the small businesses, could you help me maybe understand if you're seeing some areas that we may
Yes.
be of concern? Because I could see an area of concern, but I just want to see if that's something that since you specialize in this, if we're seeing the same thing.
So the first area of concern is that they are still owed the rent. So it's the rent is not being forgiven, it's being pushed back. So that would mean that if somebody is in that position, they should apply for the loan as rapidly as possible, so that when it comes time to pay it, they've got a loan to be able to do that. For the economic injury loan, that could spread out payments over 30 years. So and no payment is due until month 12. So that should go a long ways to be able to handle the rent when it's accumulated over a period of months. So we would encourage them to be able to plan for it and not wait until the last minute. There's one other
Dennis,
factor though too. One other value that hasn't really been promoted much. If somebody has an existing 7A loan, for example, if they're buying their building, SBA for the next 3 months is able to actually pay the cost of those loans over the next 3 months. Not just defer it, but actually pay for it. So for those small businesses that are in that process, this is yet another value for them.
Okay, so I guess my question that I'm trying to get an answer to is, could commercial spaces apply for that 180-day forbearance and not pay anything to the bank? But
Well,
yet, could that happen?
Again, the details will need to get worked out with an SBA loan officer, but the general answer is yes, yes.
Okay.
If they're a small business, yes, on both sides of that, both in terms of the landlord as well as the small businesses that has a lease in place.
The tenant.
My other question, in your area of expertise, if a local jurisdiction moves a memo forward that would freeze the rent for small businesses for the next 3 months, would that be beneficial for small businesses?
I'm sure small businesses would appreciate that.
Would you support that?
Well, that's a political answer, a political question, but I'm basically for almost anything legal that supports our small businesses. And if that means a postponement of rent, that's fine, as long as they know that those that they are renting from, if they're small businesses, they also have ways to get resources to help them cover their gaps as well.
And is that something that SBA could help with? It sounds like it's a yes.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dennis. That is very helpful on my end. I think those were the only questions that I had. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any other questions for Dennis in the audience? Go once. Go twice. Okay. So kind of piggybacking on your last question, Councilmember, you had mentioned if a city can, I wasn't clear on that, because right now there is a deferment. So I'm still unclear. Why would we do that if there's already one in place, like a deferral? There's already a deferral in place. So can you expand on that?
Absolutely.
So that way I can better understand.
Yeah, so in some of the research that I've been doing and speaking with small businesses and with some commercial owners or management teams, one of the things that they have suggested, and this is something that I was going to bring up, and I just wanted some clarification from Dennis because I was trying to understand it myself, but One of the things that has been brought up and is how, as a local jurisdiction, we could help small businesses with their monthly rents. And so currently there's a deferment from the state. That means that they still have to pay it, right? So it just means you have, and Chris, please jump on if at any point I'm not saying something correctly. But it sounds like they have 180 days from the end of May to pay their rent, and they can't be evicted. So they have what I see as tenant protections, right? For the commercial space. They can't get evicted, but they still have to pay the rent. So it's not freezing the rent in any way, shape, or form. So I believe that is where maybe our committee could put something in place where we could freeze the rent for any small businesses for the next 3 months. And I'll tell you why this would be beneficial for both, I believe, the commercial management team as well as the small businesses. Right now, as we heard some members of the audience speak to us, their number one concern is the rent. Right now, I have heard that some commercial management teams, so if you own the space, they're applying for either the SBA loans or they're reaching out to their banks. And what the banks are doing is they're freezing. They're not forbidding, they're just freezing. They're saying, okay, you don't have to pay now, but we're gonna add it more time to your mortgage.
Yeah, they're deferring, not really freezing, deferring.
No, they're freezing. So they're freezing. So they're just saying, so the commercial space, so let's say that I own a commercial space. I call my bank. The bank is freezing my payment. So they're saying, okay, you don't have to pay for this month, but we're gonna add time to your mortgage. So they don't have that window of 180 days that they're gonna have to pay a max amount at one time. They're just getting time added. The challenge comes when small businesses aren't having that. So small businesses, they're having forbearance. So they are adding the 180. So in the end of 180 days, if you have a small business with a rent of $10,000 a month, that could be a couple thousand that you're gonna owe all at once. So what I'm proposing is that we ask our city council, and hopefully you could support maybe a motion that we move forward as a city and help our small businesses by putting a rental freeze, a suspension on their rents for the next 3 months until the SBA loans and all of that gets figured out. Because what's happening is the owner of the commercial space is getting granted a freeze, but the small business isn't. They're being granted forbearance.
Council members?
Go ahead.
Can I make 2 observations? One is I think Councilmember Dominguez is also concerned, as I believe you are, that there are some tenants that may not qualify for the federal loan, and therefore they would not have that ability to deal with that situation. So that's a whole element. I'd say half the businesses in Santa Clara County are owned by immigrants. A significant percentage may not necessarily have the documentation in place in order to qualify for this. So your community, certainly, as much as I love Milpitas, you know it far better than I do, to realize that there's probably a significant number of business owners that unfortunately don't qualify. I have to beg off. I'm late for my next conference call, but I see that my financial officer, Lourdes, is on. I can't hear her, but I'll ask her if she can stay with you. So if you've got any questions, she can immediately answer those questions, or she knows how to get back to me. But I thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you for coming in
what you're doing.
and speaking on that. Thank you,
Dennis.
Thank you.
So,
okay,
sorry, continuing on that thought. So so Dennis touched on the second concern. The third concern that's happening right now between small business, which I know Councilmember Montano, you know very, very well because you're so close and you have daily communication with also some of our small businesses, is that many of them are afraid for either culture, language. They're just afraid to even ask the landlord and letting them know that they can't pay the rent this month. And some of them are still continuing operations, but as you know, a takeout operation isn't going to bring as much money in as it having a daily operation where they have clientele coming in and out. So by freezing the rent for 3 months, it would allow a lot of these commercial spaces. The second thing that I found out is that their rent is skyrocketing. I mean, each business is paying over $10,000. I would be intrigued to find out how much that commercial space is paying. From one commercial management team that is working with me, they let me know that they profit way more from the rents than they actually pay out. So even if we canceled the rent for 3 months, they're not going to kick that small owner out because it's just not the time, right? One, they need them. No one else is going to come in and replace them. We're moving into a recession. So they rather keep that small business there and help move them through this process. But by freezing the rent and suspending that rent for that small business, you're alleviating the stress that they're going through. Two, the SBA loans are not being processed right now because, as Dennis said, the federal government hasn't even given direction to. So a lot of our small businesses have applied, but they're in lingo. And that sounds like they're going to be in lingo for at least 3 to 4 more weeks. The time span of a small business to close is what I've been told from small businesses and some that economic strategists is between 6 and 12 weeks. That would take us, we're close. That would take us, we started, if we think about from when we started, we're in week 8. So if we don't act on something now, we're not going to be able to support our small businesses in any way because a lot of them are going to start closing.
Yeah, I'm concerned as well. Let's have Erica Wood. If maybe she might be able to shed some more light on this, on some of your concerns. So Erica, are you ready to speak?
I am. Let me just
Hello.
say hello. Thanks to all of you for inviting me to take part in the conversation today, and a nod to my former colleague, Alex, who I had the pleasure of working with at the Community Foundation.
Great.
So we consider him extended family, and delighted to at least meet all of you over Zoom, which seems to be the new way of doing business these days.
Yeah.
I'll talk very briefly about the Small Business Relief Fund that the Community Foundation has put into place. And full disclosure, I am not in this line of business day to day. And so if there are technical questions and more detailed questions, I'm happy to jot those down and then can circle up with our partners at Opportunity Fund and get that information back to you all. So, as a community foundation, we accept charitable donations from individuals, families, and companies, and we direct those charitable dollars to important causes in community. And I will say that historically, small businesses have not been in our line of sights. That we typically make grants to 501c3 organizations. So entering into this particular line of support is new and different from us. I will say that we were very compelled by some of the early data that we looked at in terms of the critical role that small businesses play in our local economies and for our local communities. And in particular, knowing that roughly of the 4 million small businesses in the state of California, 1.6 million of those businesses are owned by people of color, immigrants, many of the groups that we've been talking about in today's conversation. We also were compelled by the fact that for many, the norm is low and inconsistent income levels. These entities don't have the safety net that larger enterprises do. And in particular, many of them will not be eligible for the wonderful federal support that Dennis talked about, particularly for immigrant-owned small businesses and immigrants who are undocumented. So for all those reasons, we felt it was important to make sure that as part of our COVID-19 response efforts and relief efforts, we activate a fund that can support small businesses. And for us, you know, roughly speaking, a small business is an organization with 5 or fewer employees and also sole proprietorships. We were very fortunate that we have a wonderful organization that we could turn to partner with, Opportunity Fund. Opportunity Fund has been in the micro lending space since 1994. They are California's largest nonprofit micro lender. They have currently upwards of 6,000 borrowers in their portfolio. So we felt like they had a really strong track record supporting small businesses with microloans was in their wheelhouse. So it was natural for us to partner with them. Effectively, what the Opportunity Fund is doing by way of support is first and foremost looking at its existing borrowers. Santa Clara County is one of the places where Opportunity Fund has a big footprint and is already working with a lot of small businesses in our community. And they're helping those existing borrowers with loan modifications, potentially forgiving up to 3 months of loan payments or deferring those loan payments until the end of the loan term. They are also intending to work with new borrowers and to help new borrowers be able to access a, flexible capital to support their small business. In addition to the financial support that Opportunity Fund provides, one of the things that was very attractive to us was the guidance and the expertise, and providing that guidance and expertise in culturally and linguistically appropriate ways. So to help small businesses really take a look at their financial health. Do they have a business plan or not? Do they have lease agreements and rental agreements that can be modified? What support and guidance do they need with the people that they employ and workforce related issues? And when do they need to think about, for example, laying people off or not? So it was that powerful combination of both the financial support and the hands-on guidance that really made us feel like Opportunity Fund was a great organization that we could partner with to provide support and relief to these essential organizations in our community. So let me pause there and see if there are any questions that I can answer for the group.
Well, first of all, I really like that concept, that organization that you're partnering with Opportunity Fund. I never heard of them, so I'm sure if I haven't heard of them, I'm sure a lot of folks haven't heard of them either. But I really do like that they provide a support, some type of support relief. And is that the same thing that SBCD provides? Like helping businesses navigate through the loan forms, and that's the sort of.
So that's a great question. Opportunity Fund is not an SBA loan provider, if you will, but certainly they can help connect small businesses to organizations like the Small Business Development Center. I know they hope to become an SBA loan provider one day, but they're not there yet. And part of their role is to connect organizations with other supports and services that they might be eligible for.
And do they help with making that connection with the landlord and the tenant? Because the biggest thing that I see is the rent. Maybe negotiating the rent. Do they help with that? Speaking to providing a bridge, if you will.
You know, that's a great question. I'm inclined to say they may not get into direct conversations with landlords, but I can certainly double check that for you.
Okay. So how will your organization help us to help our business community, the small business community? So you're with the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, but under that you're with this a department called Community Impact.
Correct.
And so how would you be able to help us help our small business community?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I was really looking forward to the discussion and hearing from all of you as to what support and assistance you're thinking about to best support the small businesses in the city of Milpitas. One thing for sure is we've already activated the Small Business Relief Fund. If the city wanted to, for example, contribute some funding into that fund, we can then work with the Opportunity Fund to ensure that the relief dollars are assisting small businesses in your jurisdiction.
So that would be, for example, putting money in there's a big pot of money there, maybe not a lot, but there's a pot of money there, and our city would join in. They'll put some money in that pot to allocate it to the businesses, but who will do all the screening and the loan process and,
Yep.
and the questionnaire? Who will do that?
Yep. That's the Opportunity Fund's
Okay.
great staff.
Okay. It sounds like this is something that would be good for us because we're limited staff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't think that we as a city can give away money. It has to be to a nonprofit. I mean, the nonprofit is the one that has to give it. We can,
Right.
we're limited by our, and Chris can, our legal advisor can chime in anytime as well. Are you there, Chris?
I am, Chair Montano. How are you?
Good, thank you. So
Yeah.
if you want to expand on that.
Sure. Yeah, one of the things we did do some research on was small business loans and the city actually having a program. We know that other cities have done a similar type of program. Similar to how I think the housing subcommittee kind of dealt with this issue, we do think it's more defensible to team up with an existing team, a nonprofit of some sort that's actually doling out the money. It's obviously an aspect that's not only legal, but just practical because of the city's, in terms of limited staff, and then staff having to work on, all the components that go along with the loan program. I think it would be more expeditious to essentially get that loan program started up with a nonprofit who already has those tools in place. If the city undertook that task, it would definitely be more of a legal exercise and then more time and work that I think we'd be spending, time on the front end, not getting the money to the small businesses quick enough. So in that instance, yes, I do believe that a nonprofit facilitating the loan is more advantageous.
And the reason being is because we as a city cannot give public funds direct.
Makes it a little more difficult to do a direct assistance program. Yes.
Yeah, we can't give. So yes, so I really like this because it'll give another avenue that we can follow to help our small businesses. Do you have any thoughts on that, Dominguez? Councilmember Dominguez?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you so much, Erica, for being with us and I'm super excited about partnering with your organization. I've heard a lot in the past of great partnerships, so thank you so much for letting Milpitas be part of that if we decide to move forward. And I definitely support Councilmember Montano's idea of, I think we both support the fact of trying to do that $100,000 fund for small businesses. And as we move through this challenge, we're starting to realize that that's definitely not going to be enough, right? We're hearing that, and I hear my colleagues' concern on council, where it may not be enough.
I think you're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Sorry. Could you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. So how we could be creative with everything that we could pretty much control in our jurisdiction. And so with that, I definitely thank you for your time. It does sound that you would be more of the administrative part if we decided to move some funding into it, which is great. But it sounds that at this point, it's definitely not like a third party mediator that you could take the role of between businesses and commercial management, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's not the space that we're in. And, you know, we are a public charity ourselves, 501c3, and then in this instance, partnering with Opportunity Fund that has the lending capacity, all of the technical expertise to be able to, again, provide both the financial support, but also the advice to small businesses that they may need, depending on what particular challenges they're dealing with.
Are you part of
Thank
that Silicon Valley Strong? Are you part
Yes.
of that coalition? Okay, good.
Yep.
So Alex, can you would you like to say something on behalf of this concept?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Erica. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate that. Just a question on Opportunity Fund as the fiscal agent. If council was to approve a small business loan on behalf of the city for our small businesses, does Opportunity charge an administrative fee for being a fiscal agent?
So in this instance, Alex, we're actually serving as the fiscal agent, and then we grant the dollars to Opportunity Fund that are raised, and there is a 1% administrative fee.
So
Thank you.
let's say, okay, let's say we allocate 2K. That would be what in terms of the administrative fee?
You said if you allocated $2,000?
No, 200K.
Yeah, so
2K, 200,000.
yeah, so 2,000 would be if that's 1% of 200,000,
Yeah.
right?
2,000. Okay. To me, that I think, Alex, did you do a budget on, because your cost, because we're having staff, and I asked him to do some sort of budget on what is it costing him and his staff that's working so far. How much have you spent? Because maybe this 2,000 is probably worth it in my mind, because we pay our staff to doing all the work. It's probably already at that amount already. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Chair, I've done a little bit of research. Now consider this kind of high level. The Office of Economic Development thus far has put in 496 hours since the first order was in place of March 16. And in terms of staff dollars, it's somewhere close to $50,000 that has been expended based on staff time thus far.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be high, because you guys are spending a lot of hours. Is this the time to make that a motion, or to recommend that we use Silicon Valley Foundation Community Impact with the Opportunity Fund to make that recommendation to council, or how will we do this? Say I'm for it, I'm in agreement, and so is Councilmember Dominguez. So how would we say we want to put that?
Chair Montano, this is Christopher Diaz, the city attorney. No need for a formal motion, but I think if you guys are both in agreement of something you want to carry on to council, then I think definitely staff can take that direction and work with you both to facilitate that and bring that to council.
Yeah, I'm in agreement, because I think as Alex already mentioned, they've been putting a lot of hours in, and I had asked him to kind of do a ballpark figure, how much if you were to put it in dollars, how much have you already spent? And he's already said by 50K. So I think the 2,000 is well worth it. And I would like to propose 200 200,000 instead of 100,000, because I know that's 100,000 is not really, and that's, and for us to make a little dent, we have 400, I think we have 4,000 small businesses. So even if we touch 5%, that's going to be, you know, with a 200,000, I think even if we just reach, even if we could just help 5% of our businesses, because that's, we really do need, we're talking about to really, really help them, we need millions. And being that our city is losing revenues right now as we speak, and not just our city, but all the cities in the country, we have to be mindful as well. But I think 200,000 is what I would like to recommend. And what are your thoughts? Are you in agreement, Councilmember Dominguez?
Absolutely. I would love to support. Are you making a motion?
Well, I'm making a motion because I'm trying to find out where are your thoughts? Do you agree or disagree, or so we can ask the council?
Yes, no, I absolutely agree. I believe that our small business community is hurting and they need all the support that we could get. I do believe that this is working together in terms of health in our economic space. And I do believe they're intertwined in a way that they do reflect off, then they bounce off one another. And I do believe we need to make an investment as a city and let our small business community know that we're there with them.
Exactly.
With that, I do want to take one thing at a time. So I definitely agree that we should recommend to the council to put 200,000 into a relief fund for small businesses, with Erica's organization being the third party that will administrate the funds. And so with that, I would also like to kindly ask for your support in reaching out to the council for their, I'm not too sure, Chris, maybe you could help me out on this, if this would be part of what the subcommittee could recommend to the council, which is enacting a memorandum to freeze rents for all small businesses in the city of Milpitas for the next 90 days.
So with that, but Councilmember Dominguez, that one I would really like to have more legal advice, because I don't even know if we can do that. So if we can hold that off for the.
Chris, could you help me with this one? Would that be possible for us to make that recommendation out of that subcommittee, and could that happen right now?
Yeah, thank you both, Chair Montano and Councilmember Dominguez. I think you as a council or council subcommittee can recommend anything to the council. On this specific issue on the rent freeze, that is something that I would want to look at legally.
Yeah, I'd like to see, because what are the ramifications? What if, because ultimately the tenants still have to pay the rent. You know, that's their duty. They still have to pay it. So I don't know what exactly. So you as our legal advisor needs to find out, what are the ramifications? What does it mean? How will we, because we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So maybe we can ask you to look into it, so that way you can come back and.
I like that, Councilmember Montano. If we could go ahead and direct staff to look at moving forward a memorandum to freeze rents on small businesses for the next 90 days. That would be a direction. And then the supportive motion would be to support the 200,000 allocation to support small businesses. Does that sound good, Councilmember Montano?
It sounds more like a mandate. No, it's what I'd like to see is more for it to come back, because I do want something in place, but we got to make sure that it's legal. And I'd like Chris to do the the digging, make sure that everything is, that we can do that.
Absolutely.
So if we can come back and have that information for our next meeting, or I think that would be the best thing. Have that information, and if we can do it, then let's do it. So
absolutely.
Thank you both. What I'll do is I'll do some research on the rent freeze. We'll come back to your next committee meeting and we'll give you that information and analysis, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Okay,
Perfect.
great.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you. So the opportunity, so I'm glad that we're in consensus of getting on board, having the opportunity fund get on board with Erica and working together as a partner. So great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. Is there anything
Thank
else you'd like
you.
to say, Erica? Anything else?
No, just really happy to work with you all, and Alex, I'm sure you and I will be in touch on follow-up.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, terrific. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Erica.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so is there any comments from the public on this? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to,
Just confirming there are no comments on it. Thank you.
okay,
Thank you, Mary.
So let's move on to number 3, status of the Office of Economic Development's response to COVID-19. Alex? Would
Thank you,
like to
Chair.
go ahead and start?
Yes, I would. And Mike Liu will be bringing up the PowerPoint shortly. There it is. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. So my role today is to provide you an update as to what the Office of Economic Development has been doing in response to COVID-19. We've been incredibly busy the last few weeks. As I mentioned earlier, we're up to close to 500 hours in just a few weeks related to making sure that we're assisting our business community the best way that we can. So next slide, Mike. So this slide and the next slide is just to give you some background and remind you of what was discussed at the March 24th subcommittee meeting. It was our first meeting of the subcommittee, and I think it's just good to touch on some of the things that were discussed. And so the focus of the subcommittee is business assistance, relief, and then some of the following items on the work plan listed there on the screen. So they include small business loan programs that provide rent relief and help in keeping people employed. You suggested that staff assist small businesses with resources available from higher levels of government, which we're doing. Assist businesses with marketing and promotions, and I'll discuss in just a little bit more information as to what we're doing on our restaurant promotions campaign. You also talked about an economic stimulus supplement. You talked about stimulating business recovery, as well as increasing revenues for the business community and to develop a co-op business model. Next slide. You also discussed a partnership with the Silicon Valley Small Business Development Center, which of course we're doing. You heard Dennis King speak earlier. We're communicating a lot more these days, as well as our Milpitas Chamber of Commerce is also communicating directly with the Silicon Valley Small Business Development Center.
Good. I just want to make a comment. I'm really glad that the Milpitas Chamber of Commerce is really on board, really hands-on now, and they're doing a lot of things on their website and being more proactive. I'm really glad they're working close with you on this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, agreed. And we are working very well together. The next item is connecting with Silicon Valley Strong, which we're also doing at this point, and communicating with the mayor's office at the city of San Jose. You both mentioned helping our businesses through commercial eviction moratoriums. I won't spend a whole lot of time, but just quickly remind you that the county supervisors did pass an urgency ordinance banning evictions for non-payment of rent for all residential and commercial properties. We issued a business survey a few days ago. I'll provide you an update on that in just a couple of moments. You mentioned that you'd like to change the name of the subcommittee, which is definitely on the agenda after this presentation. And you all agreed and acknowledged that this body is a temporary ad hoc subcommittee because it was established under the resolution ratifying the emergency COVID-19 proclamation. And business relocation was discussed, but there wasn't consensus reached at the meeting at that point in time.
And the reason being, this is a short term. This is not a long term. Maybe in the future, if the Economic Development Commission might want to take that on, I'm not sure. But this finance, this small business subcommittee is a short term, and that's the way we're going to move forward with this.
Thank you, Chair Montano, for that clarification. So the next few slides will represent some of what the Office of Economic Development has been doing in our response to COVID-19. So I won't say too much because Dennis King started talking about financial assistance, but you're probably familiar with the CARES Act, which is the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security. It was approved into law on March 27th. Staff has been updating the Economic Development website with up-to-date information on business assistance and guiding, including information on business loans, among other things. So there's several new loans that have come about. You heard Dennis King talk about PPP, which is Paycheck Protection Program. This is part of a $350 billion loan program out of a $2 trillion stimulus package for businesses to cover payroll and operations. This is where I would start. For all business representatives that are listening now, please apply for this Paycheck Protection Program. If you are able to provide people employment for the next 8 weeks, then this loan will be forgiven. And so it's really important. It's for employers who employ 500 people or fewer, as well as nonprofits can apply. The max amount of the loan for the payroll protection or paycheck protection program is up to $10 million. The next item is entrepreneur development that provides financial awards totaling $240 million to resource partners such as the Silicon Valley Small Business Development Center to provide counseling, training, and education on SBA resources and business resiliency to business owners. You heard Dennis talk about the Emergency Injury Disaster Loan Grant. The good thing about this is that there's $10 billion set aside to support the EIDL program. And this one refers to a guaranteed emergency grant of $10,000. We've been told that people can get funding within 3 days to maintain payroll, for paid sick leave, and other debt obligations. This is part of the emergency injury disaster loan, but this is an expedited emergency loan. Then our state has several, well, let me actually go back to, I just missed the small business debt relief. That provides $17 billion to pay all principal, interest, and fees on existing SBA loans. I've already talked about the emergency injury disaster loan, so I'm just going to go into what the state is offering. They offer both iBank and CalCap. The iBank is a low interest and state guaranteed business loan and microloans for small business borrowers who've been impacted by the virus and who need term loans or lines of credit for working capital. And the CalCap program, the California Capital Access Program, encourages banks to make business loans to business owners that have difficulty obtaining finance. We're also looking at grant opportunities at this point. Our grant writer is being utilized as a kind of a concierge at this point in terms of providing a loan application survey or loan application assistance rather. And so we've created a new email and it is as follows. It's businessassistance@ci.milpitas.ca.gov. So for anybody.
Webinar, is that on your, not webinar, is that on the city website?
It is, yes.
Okay.
It's on the city's website as well as the economic development website.
Thank you.
So yeah, we're trying to obviously help our businesses as much as we can. We're also partnering with Vice Mayor Bob Nunez on developing a webinar on financial assistance. The focus of the webinar will be to ensure that businesses get business loans quickly. The city would be the host, and thus far we could have several co-hosts that include the following folks: the Small Business Development Corporation of Orange County, the Small Business Development Center of Silicon Valley, so Dennis's group, Milpitas Chamber of Commerce, and the Office of Supervisor Dave Cortese, Office of Assembly Member Kansen Chu, and Office of Senator Bob Wachowski. Those are the folks that we are going to be talking to soon as it relates to this webinar. The date has not been determined, but we'll keep everybody posted on that.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So in terms of outreach and in-reach, on March 13th, we added the business assistance and guidance information onto our website for the first time. There's a lot of information there. We're actually trying to update it now to make it more user-friendly from the eyes of a business representative. So I would say, please, for those that are listening, please log on to that, to our website, Milpitas Innovates. We've also been keeping our business community up to date through what's known as constant contact messaging. We have completed 3. The first message went out on March 11th, and it really focused on our city manager, Steve McHarris's info memo to council on safety, pandemic response plan, and continuity of operations, as well as the city's priorities during these difficult times. The second constant contact message was issued on March 21st, and that one really focused more on the Office of Economic Development beginning to reprioritize based on business needs of the moment. So we shared information with different types of loan programs, especially gap financing, since we understand that actually receiving small business loan may take 4 to 6 weeks is what we hear. And then most recently, this past Saturday, we issued our third constant contact message. And the important components there were the fact that we issued a business survey, which we'll get into in just a few moments. And then also make sure that people knew about this Economic Development Council meeting that's happening today. And a reminder that although people are working remotely, that we as staff are still very much providing assistance. Next slide. In terms of marketing and promotions, I'm going to talk about the business survey in just a bit. The restaurant promotions campaign, this has been actually a very good partnership opportunity with our Milpitas Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Lions Social Club. We have reached out to roughly 230 restaurants to see who's open, who's offering delivery and takeout, and we're going to create a social media push so that people know to come and shop local. And we'll be sharing that with the Milpitas Beat as well. So special thanks to those folks that have helped us make those calls.
So when will that happen, Alex? When will they? When will that word get out? Or
we're working on it this week. Last week we spent quite a bit of time making those calls and making contacts. So we're developing the social media item now.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of partnerships, we've mentioned the Milpitas Chamber of Commerce. They've been helping us tremendously on the restaurant promotions campaign. They're sharing our information that's going out to our website as it relates to small business assistance. You know that we're partnering with the Silicon Valley Small Business Development Center. You just heard from Erica Wood of the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. We have been in touch with Michelle McGurk at the City of San Jose's Office of the Mayor regarding the Silicon Valley Strong. And I just mentioned that this webinar, financial webinar, could be also be a part of it as a co-host rather from the Small Business Development Corporation of Orange County. Next slide. So I mentioned earlier that we issued a survey. The survey went out to roughly 4,000 businesses. We don't have emails for everybody. We have roughly a little over 3,100 emails. So within the first 8 hours of this being released on Saturday around noon, we received 80 some odd responses. So things are looking good in terms of people completing the responses. So
wait, did you say 80% or 80 actual responses?
84 thus far, and I checked this morning at around 10:30. We have around 115 already completed, but the graphs that you see, you won't see a lot of changes from what's happening here.
So most of them have been completely closed. So they're not doing any what do they call it? Like open minimally or remotely. They're not doing any remote business like take-ins, take-out, or online technologies. So they're where it says completely closed, that means they're just completely closed. No remote business, no online take-in. What do they call it when people call in and they delivery service? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, Chair Montano, those completely closed are likely to be the businesses that are considered non-essential, and thus, based on the Santa Clara County order, they have to be closed. The other businesses that you would see, so anyway, roughly 55% of our businesses are completely closed. You'll see that the next largest bar there is closing multiple days, which is about 12, 13%. I've talked to some restaurateurs that are doing that, as well as other businesses that are providing essential services, but they're needing to not close completely, just have a reduction in hours, which is what you see on that green bar, a little over 10%. So this, it's important. We're going to continue to monitor this.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. So this particular question was about if you need financial assistance from a lending institution, what purpose or purposes are you seeking small business loans for? This actually makes sense to us because both rent or mortgage and or labor and benefits are usually the highest expenses for a small business. So you see close to 80% would be utilizing funding for rent and mortgage. And with roughly 60% needing funding for labor and benefits. And then the next section being utilities of close to 60% as well. Next slide.
So can you going back to the previous slide, I have a question on that.
Sure.
So on utilities, I thought I heard that PG&E is deferring utility bills. Is that correct, or did I just mishear that?
I will have to do my research. There are various utility companies that are researching that, so I have to do that myself to respond back.
Okay. Yeah, I think Silicon Valley CVCE, they just sent something out that they're not charging their customers for any late fees, or they're deferring their payments, something to that effect. Maybe if you can find that out too.
I will.
Yeah. So, and then the labor and benefits, that's mostly why we're trying to get these loans, people to apply for those loans so they could pay their employees. That's why the whole thrust of the the SBA loans are moving forward from the federal government. And rent or mortgage, that's the big one right there. That I hear most of our business owners that they're really concerned about the rent. But again, that moratorium or that the postponement of rent. So that's the tough one. So okay, we can move on to the next slide.
Thank you, Chair.
I have a quick question. Could you go back to that slide really quick, Alex? Okay,
Sure.
so this is utilities, vendors. Another thing that I would like is maybe finding out if some of those utility costs are the city of Milpitas. And if there's any way that, I know that we're already doing forbearance and other programs for our citizens, but I would be interested to see what we're doing in terms of for small businesses. So if that would be the utilities. And then, yeah, definitely that 80% rent or mortgage, Chris, if you could please look into it, making sure, because if we would be able to cancel the rent for small businesses for 3 months, that would be 80% of their expenses. And so the loans would then help that small business so much more if we would be able to do both of them together. So thank you so much for this work, Alex. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And Councilmember Dominguez, yeah, on the survey, there have been some business owners who are asking for deferment of utilities related to the city itself.
Okay.
So that's something we would speak with our finance director as well as the city manager's office.
That would be good.
That'd be
So,
great. Thank you.
Moving on quickly here, I mentioned earlier that we have a concierge service where we're helping small business representatives go through the loan application process. And so we were just trying to find out who needs assistance, and we're looking at close to 60%. So we recognize that we will continue to be busy, but obviously we want to provide good customer service and the best up-to-date information to our business community. So we will continue to assist. These emails are coming through this business assistance email that you see on the screen. Next slide.
Can I so just for clarification, when it says loan, what about the grants? Shouldn't it have said small business loan / grant, or is that some other slide?
Well, there are loans like this payroll participation program that if the small business owner is able to show proof that for at least 8 weeks they kept people employed, that becomes a forgivable loan. So,
Okay. Oh, I
yeah.
get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So this question has to do with what is the total revenue loss to businesses so far due to COVID-19? And we asked them to include all losses. You will see that about 35% of respondents have indicated that more than $50,000 has been part of their loss. That was as of Saturday night. This morning at around 10:30, I checked this again, and that actually has increased to 40%. So one of the key takeaways here is that the majority of respondents, 25 out of about 84 respondents, said they would need $100,000 or more. Some went as far as needing $300,000. Some are indicating 500,000, and there was one or two that went to $1 million. So this is
Wow.
this is significant.
And I was thinking that, well, maybe we can give different kinds of, okay, never mind.
Okay.
It's just
I have
backed out
one
of it.
more slide.
It's the minimum.
So other business survey takeaways, I mentioned earlier that we had 84 responses on that first day. We're up to like 110, 115. About half of those that have responded are reporting that layoffs have already started taking place. Most businesses report that that they will be closed for 2 to 3 months or up until the shelter-in-place orders lifted. Most immediate business need is funding, with a majority of that need being over $100,000 in loans. And then if COVID-19 ended today, most businesses report it would take them roughly 2 to 7 months, with some saying a couple of years to return to normal business operations. And so that is the end of my report. I just want you to know that the Office of Economic Development has been obviously working closely with other city departments and the other partnerships that we mentioned earlier. We have reprioritized, and the focus is definitely on small business relief and recovery. I'll take any questions if you have them.
Well, it's a big task. Yeah, it's and the city of Milpitas business owners are not the only ones. It's not just the city of Milpitas, it's every city in the state, every city in the whole country. When you think about it, it's humongous. And we know we have to be realistic, and we can't help everybody, but we can do our due diligence and try to help, those that are drowning, whatever little bit we can help. It's just a goodwill gesture. The other thing I wanted to ask you, when you said small businesses, are these just the restaurants, or are these all the small businesses from your presentation?
Thank you, Chair. To clarify, all businesses.
All businesses, okay. Now, are we going to be concentrating on all the small businesses, which is less than 50 people, or just on businesses that have 10 employees? I'm not sure. So
the Small Business Administration considers 500 employees or fewer as a small business, and in some industries, it can go up to 1,500. You heard Erica from the Silicon Valley Community Foundation earlier talk about, I think, 10 employees or 5 employees and fewer. For us, we're currently partnering with Strategic Economics, who's doing our economic development strategy. They're using the definition of 50 employees or fewer as a small business.
So what do you think we should go with that, or should we go with the 10? I'm not sure what 10 employees, 50 employees.
For my professional
what would be your recommendation?
Perspective, I would say 50 employees or fewer. Now, you and council will have the opportunity to decide that. And obviously we'll customize our programs to that.
Okay, and you're saying 50 because why?
Well, that's following what our strategic economics consultant is using in terms of our economic development strategy, which is actually a good time to say that our economic development strategy, which will go to you hopefully for adoption soon, will have a section that's obviously part of COVID-19, and we may have some emergency implementation actions related to that. So I just want to be consistent with what our consultant has been utilizing as 50 employees or fewer.
Okay. So are you including in, when you'll be talking to these businesses, maybe this might be an opportunity for them to make changes to their business? Like maybe now they have to start thinking about using technology as part of their outreach to get customers. I'm not sure. I mean, are we going to implement that when we start working with them?
Yeah, the more immediate need is dollars for rent and mortgage, as you saw, as well as payroll. We do, as the Office of Economic Development, do provide assistance with for small businesses that need assistance. For example, developing a business plan, a succession plan, how to have access to capital, things of that nature. And so we partner with SCORE, we partner with the Silicon Valley Small Business Development Center and other organizations for that type of expertise. So if that's the kind of information that's needed, we will definitely help.
Okay. So you have a core team right now, and that is Dennis, and it's now what was her name? Erica, and the chamber. Who is that other person that your core team that you're working with? Is
At
it the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, we're working with the new president, Warren Wettenstein,
Okay.
their vice president, Inderjit Mundra, as well as CJ.
Okay, good.
And other, the board. We're also working with the Silicon Valley Small Business Development Center. Aside from Dennis, we're working on his team with Ali Lopez as well as Chris Horton.
Okay, and then so when's the next time you guys will be meeting to hash out all these little details?
With those partners?
Yeah.
It hasn't been determined yet, but we're gonna meet real soon.
Okay. Let's see, I think that's all the questions I have. Do you have any questions, Councilmember Dominguez?
Yes, I have one quick question that has been brought up to my attention by a small business, a couple actually in Milpitas this morning. And so Dennis had talked about the predatory component of what we're experiencing with small businesses in COVID-19. And that's not something that we added into our priority work plan for this subcommittee. I'm wondering, Chair, if you would kindly be interested in just adding it as part of it. I mean, some of the stuff that Alex and has shared with us is probably going to touch on that predatory, right? It's just probably some of the stuff in the presentation or whatnot, just to keep people alert.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, because that would keep them in the forefront, so that way they'll be aware of that. That would be good.
Thank you so much. I thank you for supporting that. The second thing that has been brought up to my attention, and this isn't new, I was trying to research, it literally got brought up to me this morning. There is an individual that has been going up down the state suing small businesses for ADA lack of compliance. And he is in Milpitas, and 2 of our small businesses have been served. And so they're working with their commercial space and their lawyers. But one of the things that they're seeking is, right now they have an added layer of COVID-19, which I don't know if we could add to the subcommittee, or maybe it's just hindsight. Hey, let's just have it as we move through this process. They're now going to be faced with probably permit expenses through the city, because they're probably going to have to be adding the ADA compliance. So Steve, I don't know if maybe we could just have that. I don't know if this is it, but I definitely wanted to mention it to you, Alex and Steve, since I know it goes somewhere. I just don't know where, because if he's in Milpitas, he's probably doing the drive-throughs and targeting our small businesses as we speak right now, which is not.
Thank you, Councilmember Dominguez. Yes, unfortunately, that has been happening for years in our communities, and it is an issue of accessibility. So Oftentimes, these businesses will have to pay costs associated with not just permits, but the actual improvements themselves, the tenant improvements. It can get expensive. People, instead of making these improvements, they actually just end up paying up front so they don't get sued. We'll take a look at that. That's a little bit outside of the COVID-19 response, but we'll talk to the city manager's office.
Chair,
Perfect.
would you
Thank
like
you so
me to,
much.
Chair Montano, would you like me to respond at all?
Yeah, would you, if you want to say anything,
Yeah.
Steve?
I think it'll be brief. So we are aware of the two businesses, and I have spoken to at least one of them. And our building official, our building department, and our building staff have offered guidance through the process, which is very good help because they don't really know where to start. It does require them to bring on consultants to go through the process of what improvements need to occur. And then when it comes to building permits, if there are any permits, those go back to the council. Do want to provide relief in that area? That would be need to be council direction. Staff wouldn't be able to waive those fees. Those fees do come out of the general fund, and that's how the building department is funded, of course. So I guess I would leave you with that we're aware of it. We are offering assistance in terms of staff technical guidance through this. And if anybody else has issues with that, they can contact our building department, and they are available. And particularly now, I think they're going to be very available to address any of those concerns. So we're connected, and I'll just leave you with that. I do think it's maybe outside of the parameters of your
I agree.
economic development thing, but I did want you to know, and the public and the business community to know, we are here to help you in that area.
Thank you, Steve. I agree. Definitely. Thank you so much both for the time. Thank you so much, Chair, for the time as well.
Okay, good. Yeah, that is, I'm glad you spoke on that. And it's a case by case issue. So let's go on to item number 4, consider name change of Economic Development Council Subcommittee. Any recommendations? So I have one, and basically it will say Milpitas Small Business Assistance Program. I was thinking about relief program, but either that assistance or relief program. That's my recommendation.
I like that.
If you have something,
No, I like that. I like the relief because I do believe that's our goal, is to provide the relief. And so I like that. I like that idea. So I second that.
okay. So like I said, it could be business assistance or business relief. And you're saying you'd like business relief?
I like the business relief. I think that definitely targets what our goal is. And so I think it also may give businesses just it kind of feels more right, like it's kind of, what do you do? It's
like
oh,
we're helping,
it's like it's a catastrophe kind of, and it is right for their small businesses right now. This is a very challenging time where they could, it's hard. And so I like the relief. It brings immediate aid to a situation. So I like that, Councilmember Montano.
Okay, thank you. So Alex, I think you said you were also going to come up with a list of names that we could might consider to bring to the full council.
Yes, Chair Montano, it was very similar to what you just described. It would have been, Small Business Assistance Committee, Subcommittee, or Small Business Relief Subcommittee. Those get kind of long, however, so Business Relief Subcommittee sounds good to me as well.
Okay, so we'll bring those two. To the full council, assistance and relief, and unless you come up with another one, but and then we'll see if they have any that they want to recommend. So okay, let's see, anything else? All right, so we went over the survey, and thank you so much for all that hard work, because I know that takes a lot of work. We went over the SBA, SBC, SBDC, the Silicon Valley Strong. Let's see, we went over some of the ways that how we're going to be providing technical assistance. and helping those small businesses promote themselves in some other ways, to be creative, marketing. And yeah, and when hopefully you guys can come up with your team, your core team, and get together, and then we'll move forward to get this, and hopefully the council will approve the 200K, so we can at least serve more people, more of the businesses. So, all right, anything else? Anybody out in the audience want to say anything before we close?
Chair, when is our next meeting?
All right, then let's decide that. So the next city council meeting is on the 7th. How about Alex, because you're the one that's doing all the work. I'm gonna ask you, when would be a good time for you to have something else in place? I'm thinking about the 3rd week of April or the 4th week of April. But I'm gonna leave that to you somewhere in April, but not sure what will your thoughts be? Alex.
Thank you, Chair Montano. We are working around the clock in response to COVID-19. So we're available when you all want to meet. I would say, give us at least another week
Yeah,
to
that's
prepare.
Because you
yeah,
got the city
feedback.
council this week. So let's do the week of the 19th. The 3rd week, 1, 2, 3, the 4th week of April, which is
Chair,
it gives you 1 full week to get what you got, do what you got to do, and then come back on the week of the 19th. But go ahead, Ms. Councilmember Dominguez.
Chair, one of the things that I do want to definitely, this is a lot of work, even in a week. I know, Alex, it's a lot. And so please, I would like you to know, I know everything can't get done, right? So definitely prioritize. One of the things that I would want to speak on in terms of the subcommittee, and because we can't talk about it out of the subcommittee, is the rent freeze. And so Chris, I was wondering, Chair, if we could at least do a subcommittee meeting to just talk about that next week, because if we would be able to move forward, it would be great if we could bring it to council for their
that's a good idea.
On 21st.
Okay, so how about if we can meet with just Chris and just to focus on the rent freeze, and that way he can give us all the parameters and everything that what it means and what and how it will be implemented and so forth, if it goes, so that way we can bring it back to the council on the 21st. So yeah, let's do a meeting with Chris on the week of the 12th.
Perfect.
And Chair Montano and Councilmember Dominguez, one suggestion will be, I could probably get you just a written document for the subcommittees under the attorney-client privilege for you to have. And then I think from there, if you want to schedule that meeting, we can go ahead and do that. But I'll aim to get you something if I can early next week.
Actually, I would like to have you, Alex, and the city manager, because they need to know. I think it should be not just a memo.
I agree. I believe it needs to be a meeting. That way, Chair, if we decide to together move in that direction, we all know what we're speaking. And I also think it would give the opportunity for transparency for the community to know that we are asking these questions and they could be part of those conversations, just in case they have something we may not think of, right? And so I definitely echo your sentiments about having a meeting on the 12th, regardless if we get that memo or not, and then we could just move forward with that decision on that day.
The 12th is a Sunday, so are you sure?
The week of the 12th, any day that week. I would say the earlier the better, because then it would give time to put things on the agenda for the 21st. So I'm thinking maybe that Monday, the 13th or 14th.
Yeah, that would be good. Well, actually, maybe move it out to the 15th on a Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah,
That works.
So it'll give Chris more time to.
Thank you.
Thank you. No worries.
Are you
Thank you,
okay with
Chair.
that, Chris? Or, you know, or because you know we could always do Thursday or Friday too.
No, the 15th works. I think I'll have some initial thoughts for you on Monday, and then I think we can go from there.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and yeah, it gives you more time. Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, so I guess that's it. Anybody have any more questions before we adjourn? Okay, everybody have a safe rest of the week. We'll see
Thank
you guys
you.
tomorrow.
Bye, guys. See you guys tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you.